We're here in a very shady section of the garden, and one of the more beautiful things that we have to plant in the south, and lots of them, are ferns. And so today I would talk a little bit about some of the different ferns that we have out there that are very successful in low country situations. One that I'm going to talk about first off is a fern called the log fern. And you can see it's just starting to emerge, and if you look you can still see the fiddleheads. This is a very tall fern, as you see here. It's going to reach a height of about 3 feet and when it's finally totally unfurled. So the best thing about this fern is the fact that it does really have that nice vertical feel to it. It's a little bit taller than many of the ferns that we have to grow here in the low country. I absolutely love this fern, and it is deciduous, so in the winter it will die back and we'll cut it back to the ground, and then in the spring, this time of year, it starts to unfurl with the new fiddleheads. So an excellent fern. And then, you know, right beside it we have a bronze. This is the bronze foliage, the new foliage of the autumn fern. And if you get a wide-angle view of this garden, you're going to see that bronze foliage really popping out in the garden this time of year. And what it will do, as you can see over here, it will send the new fronds up through the foliage from the previous year. So what this is telling you is that this fern really is an evergreen fern. And this is the autumn fern again. And you can see the new foliage coming up through it, that beautiful bronze color. Very much a harbinger for spring, because after the weather starts to warm up, the fern will then turn back to this very lush green foliage, and that's how it finishes out the year. One of the tips for this fern, every 2 to 3 years I go in and chop it all to the ground before the new fronds emerge. So usually early February I'll come in, shave it all the way back, and then all you'll get for that season, obviously, are these new bronze fern fiddleheads that'll unfurl, but it gives the fern a fresh look. It takes all the dead foliage away, because if you look at this, and I haven't been in here to clean it up yet, you can see a few fronds and things that still need to be cut out of this. With the new growth coming on, I'm going to wait till this hardens off a little bit, and then I'm going to come in and cut that back. And as you see around right now this time of year, we still have a few azaleas that are in bloom. And look at that nice combination of the what we call the bronze fiddleheads. But really, if you look at that, you can see a little bit of pink in that bronze. And that combination, that echo of color there, it's really beautiful this time of year. Another fern that's one of my favorites over here, and this is a fern that we call the ghost fern. And notice how very different this fern is from the ones that we've seen already. The ghost fern is, notice it has sort of that silverish look to it, but at the same time in the foliage, that midrib, right down the ribs and coming through the different frond areas, it's sort of a burgundy color. So you got burgundy and silver mixed together. And this is, as you notice, it's a much lower fern, but very compact, and it sort of has sort of a vase shape to it if you look at it. So another one of my favorite ferns. And you know, one of the tips for growing these ferns successfully and making them really show up in the garden is to plant them in large clumps. A one here and a one there. It's a garden of ones. And you know what? Nothing really shows up well. When you're planting a group like you see here, plant 5, 10, 15, and depending on what your space is, plant 25. That's when they're really going to show up. And if you can imagine with some of these that we're seeing planted in mass, you would really get a really good, substantial feel for what that fern really looks like in the garden. As we're moving along and looking at some other ferns in the garden here, we're going to come to another one that's another non-native fern, but it's one that is called the East Indian holly fern. And if you notice, this is a variegated fern, has a little bit of variegation in the ribs of the plant, and this is actually the new foliage coming up. This is another one of the evergreen ferns, and what I will be doing with this one is waiting till this foliage hardens off, and then I'll go in and cut off some of these older fern fronds. Now, the East Indian holly fern is one of those ferns that doesn't really like to be cut back massively every 2 to 3 years like I would do the autumn fern. I will just go in with this fern and cut out the bad looking burn fronds whenever I see those. And so this time of year I would do that, but doesn't really like you messing with it as much as you would some of the other ferns. As we move through the space, one thing to point out, look at this combination here. This is an azalea, one of the encore azaleas, which the encores, what they're known for is that ability to send out blooms throughout the season. Right now it's doing its spring flowering with a heuchera. And look at the color combination there. The backside of that heuchera, sort of a pinky color, very much an echo for the azalea that you see behind it. Heucheras are an excellent plant for us for the fall, winter, and early spring. Usually they kind of poop out when it comes to May, late end of May, beginning of June, because it starts to get hot here. But you know what? It's one of those excellent things that, I mean, this time of year, that is totally phenomenal.